Right. And now it's back to me again. But he did it. I didn't do that. He made that meme and it's all over Twitter. So I am accepting or I should call it X in his honor. X, you know, Elon X, Elon, Peter Thiel, Elon, PayPal Mafia. Um, Doge coin is his baby. If you're not familiar with Dogecoin, well, I think it was more significant over in Europe when it opened out, maybe 3 years ago. I never really followed it, but it has a picture of that little Japanese dog on it. And the reference DOG, to the dog with an E added on it. What is that? Is that really just a cover up for what is a secret message to the elites, to the ones that are in the know that, hey, this is the new Venice. We're going to be running the same system that the old Venetian Empire ran, the system that it imported into Amsterdam and then imported into London and then imported into Wall Street and now has the kind of a multinational presence, perhaps best thought of as living out in outer space in Elon Musk's uh, vast arrays of satellites and computers and interconnected technologies and the building of these huge machines like CERN in Switzerland and the great computers of the National Security Agency and all of the governments of the world, plus the computers that are dedicated toward mining, they call Bitcoin or other kinds of coins that really exist only because of a mathematical peculiarity that gives it some uniqueness, doesn't have intrinsic value. So, and hello, welcome everybody. I know I'm not on YouTube much anymore, but I thought this is going to be more about money than it is about the things that I get slammed for on YouTube. And I miss my friends that follow me there. I ask you once again, Rumble is my flagship at McDuff Lives channel on Rumble, and that's where I broadcast live from. I do duplicate it onto YouTube once in a while because, well, YouTube has a huge reach, and you guys followed me there. I had over 12,000 followers when they took my first channel down, so I want to be loyal to you, but I ask you then to just go over to Rumble and push that follow button and then you'll get notices of our upcoming shows over there because I seldom on YouTube anymore. I just don't have the confidence that I can speak freely. But I'm going ahead today and welcome if you're on Rumble and if you're on X and if you're on our Facebook channel, McDuff Lives. Thank you very much for those of you that follow us on Facebook. We've never been censored there. We've never been censored on X. But YouTube has just tore a bunch of holes in my work, and I don't think I'll ever recover that first great loss. Nevertheless, we are continuing and making more and more progress as we put things together. And what I'm going to do today, and a lot of times when I do a Mindfield, it's not like I have a script. Okay, I'm putting thoughts together that I've been thinking about for a few days and trying to organize them in a way that flows without having to write an outline or anything. So the the whole thing about the Doge is the the king, if you will, or the duke of Venice, and Venice was a republic. They called themselves a republic anyway. They're certainly not a republic in the sense of the American Constitution, where we protect individual rights. They were a republic of oligarchs. They were a republic of ancient families, families that had old wealth and controlled the entire enterprise that we know as the Venetian Empire. And the Venetian Empire ran on slaves. It ran on uh, galley ships. It ran on exploitation of everybody that wasn't noble or part of a protected family or otherwise useful to the state. And I've talked about it many times here on the show about how Venice, and I've learned this material almost entirely from our friends at the Schiller Institute and LaRouche Organization and their archive at Executive Intelligence Review, which you can look at yourself anytime you wish to. And I'm often quoted from their work. Webster Tarpley is the originator of the line of research that brings together Rome, Diocletian, uh, the sack of Rome, Constantinople, the Crusades, Venice, the whole scene, and he is the one that traces and shows how the Venetian Giovani, the young party of the Venetian government, saw the writing on the wall and said, Venice is just not going to sustain itself any longer. The French are too powerful, the Muslims are too powerful, and we're too small. We need a better place to work from. And they gradually made their way into the city of London, which is now a protected enclave within the greater city of London, in which they basically have autonomy. Uh, they're called the Venetian Party in the readings that I've done. And I want to return to one of them because I think this is a good jumping off point here. So hold on a second. Okay, this is a quote from the Venetian takeover of England, a 200-year project by Gerald Rose, which I read most of and discussed in more detail in Mindfields 248 about 3 weeks ago. So I'm putting a lot of things together that I've learned in the past 3 or 4 weeks and trying to make a big point that America needs to wake up to this idea of the Venetian system and how close we are to falling into it ourselves right now if we don't learn history. And here's the quote. It was one of the most well-known, quote, secrets, unquote, of the British oligarchy that the model for the British Empire was Venice. Benjamin Disraeli, the late 19th century Prime Minister of England, let the cat out of the bag in his novel Coningsby when he wrote, quote, the great object of Whig leaders in England was, from the first movement under Hampden to the last most successful one in 1688, was to establish in England a high aristocratic republic on the model of the Venetian. Okay? So that is the testimony of Benjamin Disraeli, one of the most important prime ministers that Britain has ever had. And I think we ought to credit it. Okay. So when he refers to the Whig leaders, he's talking about the people that we've studied in the book by Graham Lowry, uh, How the Nation Was Won. When we study about, and you can hear these videos that I recorded at McDuff Archive on my Rumble channel. I've got 3 Rumble channels. One of them is called McDuff Archive, and you can find those old book readings from about 4 years ago there. But I did 27 hours of that book, so I hope you understand that's why I think it's so important. So you study the people that grabbed control of England uh, after Charles II and during James II, and the money powers that they came in and just started manipulating money to their own oligarchical interests is the story that leads leads to the American Revolution, because that's what it was about, was getting away from that old oligarchically led, the House of Lords and the great estates and the rentiers. Get away from that and start something based on who you are and what you can do. And the idea of liberty and freedom, which took hold in this country and is so under threat right now. It's all about the system that was set up for us by our founding fathers in the Constitution and how it's under threat. Okay, so just to finish this, there's a little bit more I think is very important. It says William III, which is William and Mary, the one that my college is named after. He's the one that comes to England from the Netherlands and is met by these money guys um, as a conqueror, but he really was just ushered into power, and they made a new law that said that he could be the king, even though he wasn't, in part of the British line of lineage of uh, of kings. And that, of course, I can get diverted on that, so I'm going to get back to what I was going to say. Here's what William III told the Whig leaders: I will not be a Doge. Okay? So the William III knows that they want him to be the top of a Venetian system in which, and I'll describe what that means to be the Doge. He says, I don't want to be a Doge, because he knows that as a Doge, he's mainly a figurehead, mainly a ceremonial leader that gets all the publicity, that goes to all the public events, that makes speeches and signs big deal legislation. But he knows that the real power and the money and the fun is in the oligarchical families, like the old families of Venice, that are now in many ways transported and become the old families of England. How does that happen? Well, read Shakespeare, Henry VIII. All of these hidden machinations that are below the surface are the real history, and we need to know this. So he says, I don't want to be a Doge, because he knows what a Doge is. But who follows him? Well, Queen Anne was not a Doge, but Queen Anne was uneducated. She was kept in the dark. She was not allowed to make policy. And these people, the Marlboroughs and them, behind the scenes, they were the ones. And they did it in favor of the oligarchy, the big old landowning families that bound together and took care of each other by controlling what? By controlling the economy. Bank of England. So, just to finish this little quote, they, meaning the banking, the large families, brought in a new family on their own terms. And this, of course, is the Hanovers. George the First was a Doge. George the Second was a Doge. George the Third tried not to be a Doge. He might try to get rid of the Whig magnificos, but he could not rid himself of the Venetian Constitution, unquote. That, again, is Benjamin Disraeli. This is not somebody that doesn't know what he's saying. The well-known secret of all the Whig insiders was that the Venetian takeover of England was a 200-year project, beginning with the break of Henry VIII with Rome and concluding in 1714 with the accession to the throne of George the First. Okay? And I urge you to read the whole article. It is at LaRouche Pub. EIR Volume 21, Number 16, April 15th, 1994. And you can also hear most of it on my Mindfields 248, which I encourage you to check out as well. And then from there forward, is all of this is I'm packaging it together today as best I can, including our interviews with Richard Poe, Harley Schlanger, David Cranmer Underdown, uh, and uh, and Adam Finnegan. Uh-oh, I lost my camera. I'm so sorry. Let me see what's going on here. Well, here I am back again. Signal test bars. You'd like that, huh? Right. All right. Well, I'm sure you were listening to what I was saying, even if my face disappeared. But and I was paying attention to the other page, so of course I didn't notice it. I apologize for the lack of technical expertise here on my end. But anyway, it's a good time to take a break. Cheers. Have a cup of tea. So now I was telling you the uh, the reason that we broke away from Great Britain was to get away from all that oligarchical control, the hands behind the scenes, the hidden hand that controls everybody's destiny. No, we wanted to have our own destiny personally, as well as communities, cities, states, and finally a nation. And we claim to still have our destiny, but we've lost so much of what we need to control our destiny, especially the presidency when we lost that in 63 and the Doges started coming in, you know? And this is what I think you can understand the way I see it, that President Kennedy was the last one to have the legitimate support of the people through a election that was generally accepted as conclusive, if not totally fair. Sure, we'll complain about the other side, Chicago, the fix in West Virginia, whatever you want to talk about in that election. The bottom line is the people accepted it without raising an issue as to whether it was legitimate or not. And as Richard Poe has explained in our interview this past week, wow, what's going on right now is an attack on the idea of elections as a way to govern. And so if you get rid of elections, then what do you have left except for the people with money, the old families, the big corporate monopolies that are going to write all the laws and tell everybody what to do and use the powers of a Venetian empire to enforce it. I have another quote here I wanted to read. This one from Webster Tarpley's great essay, Against Oligarchy is the name of the essay, and you need to read that one. This is really fundamental to a rewriting of the history that we absolutely have got to do. That's one of McDuff's. I'm taking up this mission because without understanding the history, we are doomed to repeat it. That is absolutely true. Most typical of the Venetian system is the Council of Ten, established in 1310 as the coordinating body for foreign and domestic political intelligence operations. Meeting in secret session together with the Doge and his 6 advisors, the 10 had the power to issue a bill of capital attainder against any person inside Venetian jurisdiction or abroad if in Venice that person was generally strangled the same night and the body thrown into the Canale degli Orfani, the Canal of the Orphans. The 10 had at their disposal a very extensive foreign intelligence network, but it was inside Venetian territory that their surveillance powers became pervasive. The contents of any discussion among oligarchs or citizens was routinely known to the 10 within 24 hours or less, thanks to the ubiquity of its informers and spies. Visitors to the Doge's palace today can see mail slots around the outside of the building in the shape of lions' mouths, marked per denuntie segrete, for secret denunciations, for those who wished to call to the attention of the 10 and their monstrous bureaucracy, individuals stealing from the state or otherwise violating the law. Death sentences from the 10 were without appeal, and their proceedings were never made public. Offenders simply disappeared from view. Well, do you feel the Venetian system kind of casting its net over you, its surveillance, its ability to make people disappear, its secret proceedings? If you don't see what I'm saying, I don't know. Maybe you're going to vote for Kamala Harris or something. I don't know. But I hope you see it. And this is not about parties because, as you know, they're all anybody that gets that high in the public recognition and the media and all. Come on, they are part of it. I'm sorry. I know you think Donald Trump is going to save us from something worse, and maybe that's true. Or maybe Kamala Harris would save us from something worse that we don't know about Donald Trump, or they know about it, but we don't see yet, or something. But, nobody can really say that either of these candidates comes from the people. This country's supposed to be about we, the people, not about them, the elites. But the elites are running things. And that assassination of our last legitimate president in November of 1963 was a coup d'etat that ended the administration under the Constitution and began an administration under the secret oligarchical corporate tentacles of power that do not recognize human rights, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or anything about individual freedom whatsoever. As a matter of fact, they despise it. So, what did the founding fathers do to try to keep that monstrous power from coming in and taking hold of this new country that basically had very little money to deal with? And it, still owed money overseas, still owed its soldiers, still, you know, disorganized, didn't have proper communications. It was very, very vulnerable. What did these wise people, these wise men, do to avoid the Venetian system? Well, the Constitution is our protection against the Venetian system. And the Venetian system is all about the control of the economy by the elites, in which the common people have no say whatsoever. And if you poke your head up and object to something, you're liable to end up in the Canale degli Orfani. That's kind of like wearing cement, tennis cement overshoes in mafia talk, isn't it? Not very different. So that's the system that Doges are the head of. Why does Elon Musk send out the not so subtle system that he's going to be the DOGE, the Director of Government Efficiency, because he's going to get rid of all the regulations, right? So let's get the government out of the way. The problem with America is we have too much regulations. If we could just get rid of these regulations, business would be booming. Everybody would be making money. The world would come to us to buy our stuff. And it would be so cheap because there's no more red tape. It's a great, great idea. Well, what about the money? Who's going to regulate the money? Well, I think the best thing to do is to take the government out of the economy and let money just exist. You don't need a government to have money. Why don't we just use whatever we want for money? And that dollar is getting weaker and weaker. We should substitute it with something that's permanent, that can't be taken away, that government can't control. If you take the control away from the government, you take the control away from the Congress. You take the control away from the Congress, you take the control away from the people. When the people lose control over their currency, over their money, then you have an oligarchy again. You've gone right back to the British East India Company. You've gone right back to the Venetian Empire. You've gone back to Constantinople, to Rome, to Babylon. You've gone back to the elites in oligarchical combinations against the common people, controlling everything. When they want to get rid of people, they cut back on their food, or they send them as soldiers to go fight some foe somewhere. If they want people that are compliant, that will do their will, that they will raise them in a convent or in a castle by tutors that will teach them exactly how to think, and especially how to preserve the elites against the common people. Dogecoin. Dogecoin. Do you think that if Elon Musk becomes the Doge, that the value of Dogecoin might go up? I mean, it's been just sitting there. It's had a few peaks over the past 4 or 5 years. You can look at the graphs, just Google it. But if Elon Musk becomes the czar of government efficiency, do you think that will not benefit this coin that he started up and is invested in? So if you want to take Bitcoin as the biggest example, it's going to at some point threaten the dollar. But the reason to invest in Bitcoin is because you don't trust the dollar. The dollar's going down. There's nothing we can do about it. I'm going to get some Bitcoin. That completely undermines the ability of the people to control the currency. And what did the founding fathers do to make sure that that didn't happen? Well, it's right in the Constitution. And I'm going to read this to you. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5. The Congress shall have the power, and after a few powers, it says this, to coin money, regulate the value thereof, and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. Okay? The Supreme Court has specified what that means in some important cases, and I'm going to read some of the notes from those cases that are reported here on Cornell Law School's page, Article 1, Section 8C 5.1, coinage power. Because Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the Constitution prohibits the states from coining money, the Supreme Court has recognized Congress's coinage power to be exclusive. The Supreme Court has also construed Congress's power to coin money and regulate the value thereof to authorize Congress to regulate every phase of currency. Congress may charter banks and endow them with the right to issue circulating notes, and it may restrain the circulation of notes not issued under its own authority. To this end, it may impose a prohibitive tax on the circulation of notes of state banks or municipal corporations. Inasmuch as, quote, every contract for the payment of money simply is necessarily subject to the constitutional power of the government over the currency, whatever that power may be, and the obligation of the parties is therefore assumed with reference to that power. The Supreme Court sustained the power of Congress to make Treasury notes legal tender in satisfaction of antecedent debts. Okay? That's the Supreme Court case that was one of the ones that's the beginning of the slippery slope. Okay? And they say, okay, well, yeah, you can't make paper currency for buying things. Of course, that's what we have now, right? But at that time, he was saying, well, if you owe somebody something, if you owe them, $10, and you have a treasury note for $10, then you can give them that treasury note, and that satisfies the debt legally under our Constitution. And while, I might disagree with that, I would think, that if Congress has the exclusive right to make the money, and I think it should, then that's questionable to me. But again, look how far we've gone down that slope now, where we have this what a lot of people are calling it fiat currency, backed by nothing. You know, I've got upstairs. My mother gave me this dollars, this silver certificate on it. You could get certain amount of silver for it. No more. So what does it rest on? It rests on the full faith and credit of the people of the United States. This is our money. We issued it, and we are going to back it up. But the Federal Reserve System operates outside of the Congress's authority. It's like its own branch of government. And while, yes, the president has to make the budget, and has to sign off on things. I haven't seen any presidential standing up for the value of our currency. They flop right over. And it's not been any ever more evident than the so-called pandemic, where they just, print all the money they need to satisfy this supposed need, this supposed emergency. And nobody said, wait a minute, what about the dollar? What about the value of the people's savings? What about the value of our investments? And we all took a big haircut, right? We all did, except for them, you know? You can look at you can see the records, of how many billionaires got, their wealth tripled during the pandemic. And that is the way oligarchy works. It doesn't have to have a great system of laws like we have in our on our law books. It just has to have the understanding of each of the parties involved in it that they're not going to tell on each other, and they're going to respect the deals that they make amongst each other. And it doesn't matter that they make their money off of war, human trafficking, drugs, blackmail, destroying the promise of our culture, destroying America from within. So the Congress has the power, shall have the power, shall have the power to coin money. But they don't do it. Just like a king, they farmed it out. They said, yeah, this is too hard for us. We don't want to do it. We'll just give this to these guys. They know they're bankers. They know how to do this stuff. And we'll just keep an eye on them. We'll look at them, once a year. We'll have a banking committee to keep an eye on them. With a nod and a wink, knowing that the banking committee is going to be made up of their executives coming in and out that revolving door. So I'm not saying that government efficiency is wrong. I'm all for it. But be careful what you get. If you think you're going to get, a little bit less on your income tax, or you're going to get a break somehow in your cost of living, think about what else you're going to get. You're going to get the loss of control of the economy. And yes, and Elon Musk has said it himself, there will be a guaranteed universal income. So you will get the slave food. You will have enough money, maybe to do something once a week. And if you're unhappy, we'll give you some drugs to make you happy. And that literally is what's going on right now. You don't have to flip a switch to say now the culture has changed. Just look around. I am one of the most privileged people in the country, in the sense of I live in a beautiful place and I don't have drug needles on my street, and I don't have to see prostitutes when I go to work, and I don't have to deal with the horrible, horrible crimes and terrorism that's going on right now. But I'm one of the lucky ones. But when you see what's going on and realize that it's all the effect of giving control of our lives through the control of our economy to those elites that will apply the same old system as the Doges of Venice. And it's the same thing that we call empiricism, British empiricism. Nothing has any value unless you can turn it into money. Nobody's brains have any value. There's no reason for you to think that you're smart or anything like that. There's no reason for you to think that you can solve any problems or invent something new. There's no reason for you to think that you'll ever be anything other than what you were born to be. Shoemaker, stick to your last. Don't get big ideas about how government should run. We're taking care of all that for you. That's what caused the American Revolution. And if we let that go, if we let that spirit, the spirit of 76, if you let that die, then George Orwell is right. The future is a boot stamping the face of humanity forever. So yeah, I mean, right now, what are you going to do? Choose between Harris and Trump? Maybe take a flying leap and vote for Dr. Shiva? I might do that. I like what he says. I think he's very, very smart, but come on, he's from MIT. You can't expect anything good from MIT, folks. I'm sorry. I know I have a nephew that went there, and he's the exception. But from the whole the you know, I mean, the history. You know, the history. If you don't, stick around here on McDuff Lives. We will certainly do a history of it. MIT, you know, Harvard, Vannevar Bush. It's not pretty. Nevertheless, Shiva, like me, I went to Georgetown, but I don't think I got tainted by the Jesuits into some crazy elitist, you know? Anyway, I'm sure they give great educations, technical educations and all, but the purpose behind these institutions and the elites that run them, it's all part of the destruction of America, destruction of the Constitution, destruction of our ability to grow, to produce, to invent, to reason, to develop our children and their children's lives to be better than ours. I think the American dream has never been better stated than in the anthem, the American anthem that I used to sing on the show when we first started the show. All we've been given by those who came before. The hope that freedom could endure. The work and prayers of centuries has brought us to this day. What will our children say? What will be our legacy? What will our children say? And I think the only answer is let them say of me, I was one who believed in sharing the blessings I received. Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. And that's the spirit of President John F. Kennedy, who famously said, ask not what America can do for you, but what you can do for America. I think what we have to do for America is to really, really dig into the real history, to throw away the Rockefeller history books, throw away the Rockefeller medicine crap too. I mean, this is the other aspect of uncovering reality that we all have to go through. We have to realize that we have been lied to. Big lies, lies told over and over again to innocent children who grow up not knowing any better unless we speak up, unless we do what we can do to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. All right. I don't know what's going on with my main camera, but obviously that's a signal that I've said what I need to say for today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got something out of it. Think about, you know, our money. If we don't have control over our currency, over our money, as our Constitution says, we have the exclusive right through our Congress, then it's right back to ancient Venice. It's right back to Babylon. And that will not be good. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. I think Marsha will join me again for another lively McDuff's Friday live chat at 11 a.m. Eastern. Hope to see you then.